Hello, and thanks for stopping by the channel. I thought I'd spend a little bit of time going through a handful of Atari 400 cartridge games that I have. Some friends of mine gave me this system with a whole stack of games a few months back, and I thought I would go through a few specifically. This particular system was introduced in 1979, and it also had iterations up till 1992. They looked different, had better builds, I think, but this line actually went far longer than I expected it was going to go. I was really surprised to see they were making these up until 92. It uses the old school joysticks like you'd find for an Atari 2600. It's these one button affairs that you have, and even ones that have two buttons, the two buttons do the exact same thing. It's just different placement of buttons, really. And it's also worth noting that although this is considered a computer, this computer has an absolutely terrible keyboard. It's a membrane keyboard that isn't even slightly comfortable to use. And I know this is a 40-plus-year-old machine, but man, this is obviously terrible. Other iterations of this particular computer line, they moved away from this fast, and they started to use more standard keyboards. The units actually started to look more like the Commodore 64. The cartridges are a little smaller than the 2600 equivalent, and some of them actually feel a little bit heavier. I think some of these cartridges are lined with metal inside, but not all of them. To get these to play, I pretty much have to clean them all every time using Q-tips and some rubbing alcohol. But we're gaming, so. Now, I could go through and review a ton of these different games individually, but I really thought it'd be nicer to cluster a bunch of them at once. I also don't want to beef up the channel unnecessarily. I've already reviewed some or most of these for the Atari 2600, and I gotta say it's not a stretch when I tell you this. A bunch of these games are pretty close to the same thing. So let's check some of them out. We're going to start with Asteroids, a classic. You fly a triangle around a screen and shoot big asteroids, making them into small asteroids. Is this one any better than the 2600 version? I can't say better exactly, but definitely different. We do get words in this game, which is not something you see much in Atari 2600 games. When you die, you get these words that tell you game over. Check out the 2600. You're not going to find a lot of words there, and when you do, they're going to be chunky and look weird. Taking a look at Choplifter. This game has more colors than the 2600 version for sure, and there's more stuff going on the screen at the same time. The little guys you pick up, they look pretty good running around, and your chopper seems to fly relatively smooth. When you pick up these targets, they come running out of this little building basically, and the building has all these little colors in it. It looks like a little, a little auditorium maybe. It kind of looks like a Christmas play is going on. Of course, this is amidst the onslaught of enemy tanks. I don't know what that means, but that's what I see here anyway. It's fun. Not bad at all. Frogger. You get the basic Frogger music. The game has some pretty decent colors, and I have to say it's reasonably challenging to start. It doesn't start really easy and then build up. It's just decent coming out of the gates. I think the various items on screen, I think they resemble what they're supposed to resemble pretty well, and better than other versions. The logs look like logs. The turtles here that you jump on, they look like turtles to me. I think this is a definite improvement over some of the versions I've seen. Jumpman Jr. This is a platformer with a bunch of different levels. You can adjust the speed of your Jumpman when the game starts, which is pretty useful, although I set it to 1 to start, and it's super fast, which is the opposite of what I expected. I expected 1 to be slow and higher numbers to be faster, but that appears to not be what's happening here. You run around and pick up stuff and climb ladders and try to survive. I also learned when I played this game, I am not good at Jumpman Jr. Miner 2049er. This is a strange looking game. Your avatar's goofy looking, and it plays like a cross between Donkey Kong and City Connection. Not a mix that I was expecting. It's not very exciting to me, but the levels do change color, even in between when you die, between your lives. One of my most common complaints for games of this era is lack of color variation. Just there's a monotony that tends to happen with a lot of these games, but this one changes colors frequently, so I got no complaints here. Missile Command. I think this particular version would handle better with a good trackball, and the difficulty of the game here, it actually picks up pretty quick. So definitely not an easy game. It's definitely smooth, moving your cursor around screen and firing, and there feels like there's way more stuff going on the playing field than other versions that I've played. It's not bad. I mean, at its core, it's just missile commands, so there's not like there's a ton going on to begin with. I guess it's okay. Pac Man. This one was a surprise. Comparing this one to the absolute abysmal Atari 2600 version, there is a night and day difference. This one looks pretty darn close to the arcade version. You get the same music when the game starts, you get a start screen, the ghosts have great colors, the shape of the maze appears to be correct, you get fruit showing up for bonus points. I was impressed with how different this one was, and how close it was to the arcade. I was impressed with this game. If you had this system and were only getting 1 or 2 games for it, this one probably is a good one to get because it's that good compared to other versions of this time. Pole position. This is a tough one for me because at its core, pole position is relatively basic. You drive, you dodge cars, or you blow up. Okay. The colors in this game look weird to me. Too many yellows and kind of brown. You also pass billboards, and that's a normal thing for pole position, but normally when you pass billboards, they have a picture on them. I believe it was Canon cameras. Here, you have no detail, just one stark blank color. Personally, I would not have included this at all if there wasn't going to be any detail in there. If you don't have detail on the faces of these billboards, there's no need to have them in at all. It's just a distracting blob that flies by the screen. River Raid, I'm happy to have it, but it's really just a copy of the classic River Raid. It just doesn't feel any different than the 2600 version to me. I think maybe the outline of the river is different, but really it's barely different at all. It just doesn't feel like any real improvements have been made here. It's just sort of same old, same old. Spy Hunter was also a bit of a letdown. It takes forever for a villain to appear on screen. I was driving for like 20 or 30 seconds, and I was wondering if I actually started the game or not. It took forever for somebody to show up, and I just thought that was strange. Also, your car looks yellow, not white. I know the fidelity isn't great here, but I've seen white on different games. Here, I really think they colored it yellow. I guess the music is okay here. It's always nice to get music with the game for sure. But I also can't figure out how to use the special abilities of the car. So I got a smoke screen, I got missiles. I don't know how to use them. Honestly, the NES version of this game is 10 times better. It's way better. Star Wars. I am a huge fan of this game in general. I played it in the arcade. I played it on every system that I could possibly get my hands on. I just love this game. I know it's simple. It's only got 3 different basic levels, but it's always fun to me. I've definitely played better versions. I mean, the Commodore 64 must have 4 different versions coming out of the gates, but this one's fun. It's always fun to blow up the Death Star. Definitely. And also the music is really good here, so I'm a fan. I think for these games overall, my general opinion is, for the most part, most feel pretty close to the Atari 2600 versions of the games. If you upgraded that game, maybe, 10 or 11% maybe? I do see more colors, there's more music, and the words on the screen is a big deal for sure, but it's not a huge leap. I think the games tend to handle roughly the same overall, and I know that the addition of the keyboard offers interesting possibilities, but I'm only playing cartridge-based games here, which means they were probably the most similar to the Atari 2600 carts for sure. I would imagine that there'd be a ton more difference in game quality and content if we were looking at a cassette-based or a disc-based game. I don't have the media or the drives to actually play those games, and I don't know if I'm going to go hunting those down in particular, but I don't know, we'll see. If I stumble on a box of these games somewhere, maybe I'll play them, but I'm probably not going to go hunting for them personally. Well, That's all I have today for the Atari 400 and a bunch of games. If this is your type of video, please feel free to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And thanks for stopping by the channel to take a look. I really appreciate it. Hope to catch you on another video.